Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart, and today I'll be breaking down the 8-game NBA slate we have here on DraftKings. So if you're new to the channel, hit that like button. We're looking to continue the success from last night into tonight. Last night was great. So yeah, let's get into the slate breakdown. Make sure to hit that like button, and I'll see you guys there. Quick look back at my lineup last night. 2x night, not bad. 334.25 overall score. The core plays, if you guys checked out my Twitter, Hart DFS, I put up my core plays on my free Patreon, which you guys can check out. Once again, 100% free. And I just go through the whole slate, matchup spread, game totals, the key injury news, slate thoughts, how to attack it, pay-ups, building blocks, all that good stuff is in there. And yeah, the core plays were fantastic. We went Dwayne Washington Jr., Gabe Vincent, Kawhi Leonard, and Jimmy Butler. As I mentioned, they're probably going to be chalky. They were, but they were fantastic. And then from there, I went to Nerlens Noel. A little unfortunate the game blew out there. 30-point game pretty much the whole game, so he lost some third and fourth quarter run there, didn't really play the fourth quarter at all. And then Victor, he picked it up in the end. He was very disappointed through the beginning of the game, and then Bridges was fantastic, and Pascal was pretty solid. So yeah, 334, can't complain about 2x tonight. Looking to continue that into tonight with the core plays once again. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, and let's get into this slate breakdown. So once again, there's a ton of news on this slate in terms of just injury news. Like we get Phoenix once again. We'll have to wait to see if guys like Ayton, Paul, and Shaman are back. Obviously, the big two are Ayton and Paul. If Ayton's back, Paul's back, it does change up some plays. We're not going to have anything else besides that. We're not going to have like a Miami Heat situation where it's just a lone star and a bunch of scrubs. We do get Detroit again on this slate. Where are they? Missed them. They are playing Minnesota, so a great matchup there. So yeah, it's looking like another Detroit and Phoenix Sun night on the value, and then being able to jam in some star players. I'm sure we'll get more injury news, some more pivot plays, so make sure to stay updated with me on Twitter at HeartDFS. But getting into this slate breakdown, starting off with Chicago. The big news for Chicago is obviously DeMar DeRozan is questionable. If he is out, that does change up some things. It makes Zach and Vooch very, very solid plays. I wouldn't say they're like must plays or locks, but they become very, very solid plays. They're going to have to pick up the slack. Other guys like Pat Williams, maybe some of these guards will have to step up, but I really expect the big two to step up if DeMar's in, or if he's out, If he's in, no real interest. I mean, they all kind of look priced about right. It's a very solid matchup going against Washington, but I mean, you could ride the hot streak here with Zach LaVine, who's been on fire the past 3 games, shooting the ball. So you can definitely go to him. Don't mind it. So yeah, it really just comes down to if DeMar's in or out. If he's out, do have some interest. If he's in, just more secondary plays for me for the Wolves. You can always look to Pat Williams to kind of step up if DeMar's out. He should look to shoot more. He's been playing solid minutes. Oh yeah, so he'd be decent value there. The guards, sure, you can get to them. They're going to play some minutes. If Caruso's back, it does eat into some of the other guards like a Kobe, a Dragic, DeSumo. So right now, no real interest. You can always take a dart throw on Drummond in tournament settings if you want some salary relief. But yeah, not a lot of interest in Chicago. Washington side, big news is Porzingis is now questionable for this game. Sore ribs, I'm pretty sure he should be able to go. At that price tag, just more of a secondary option. I mean, he has upside. He's been decent this season. And the past month, he was very, very solid. He's kind of cooled off a little bit. And the price has gone up. So that's kind of the reason why I'm not like making him a priority. Just think he's kind of more of a secondary play. Same thing with Kuzma. Prices come up. The production just hasn't been there. I mean, they did get blown out against the Pelicans, and there was a blowout in OKC. So really hasn't been able to flash that ceiling. They've been getting blown out the past few games. Beal is out, so it does make both of them viable once again. Porzingis is out. Kuzma looks great as a spend up there at 8,500. Should be the leader of this team. Gafford is questionable as well with an ankle injury. If he's out, we can look to Hachimura, Taj Gibson to step in, pick up some minutes. So there is a little bit of injury news here for this first game, which is great because it's the first game, so we'll get it right away. So yeah, we'll kind of have to wait for that just to see who we should go to. But I mean, they didn't start Denny, and he didn't get a lot of minutes, only 22, which is pretty disappointing because before that he was seeing close to 30, and he's very productive. But if he's going to be coming off the bench, seeing 20-ish minutes, it doesn't really make him viable anymore, even at that price tag. I mean, sure, you could take a shot, but I'd rather get to a guy like Rui, whose minutes have been going up a little bit more. Kispert is questionable as well. He started. He was decent, even though he's scoring the pin. So yeah, just a lot of news there in that first game that we had to wait on. Minnesota side, Minnesota versus Detroit. Great matchup here for Anthony Edwards. Questionable with that hip injury, but he was able to play 3 days ago. So looking like he'll be fine with 3 days rest. Russell, 7,400, always a solid tournament option. Would prefer getting into D'Lo. Would prefer getting into Ant-Man just because of the higher upside there. So yeah, I do like this matchup here, this game environment for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Rudy Gobert has been seeing solid minutes the past 3 games. Another one of those games where Detroit shoots the ball a ton. They're not good shooters, so it could be a ton of rebounds for Rudy. Could have that potential 2020 game, so I don't mind him. The rest of the guys are just more secondary plays like Kyle Anderson, Naz Reid. Minutes have been going down on him. McDaniels is there. The minutes have been solid. It's just his production is kind of all over the place at times. So really, it's just kind of looking at the main 3, the big 3 on Minnesota, and that's going to be it for me. I will mention Taurean Prince. He's back. He's been playing 20-plus minutes since he's been back. He will shoot the ball a good amount. He'll get some peripheral stats. He's foul prone, as you can see, averaging 4 fouls a game right now. But yeah, I mean, he should see solid minutes, 3,200. Don't mind him as salary relief. Moving on to Detroit. Bogdan is questionable. If he's in, I mean, I think he looks solid here in this matchup. If he's out, once again, Hayes, Ivy, Burks, Bay, Diallo, Knox, Noel, all those guys are going to get run again. Stewart is questionable as well. They missed that first game on the 8th, I think they played, they played last night. I'm not sure why I'm saying they didn't play. So they're playing last night, maybe because it was a back-to-back. They just want to hold them out for the first part. Now they're playing at home, so maybe they have a chance of playing. If they do, let's just assume everyone's back. I'd really like during there the price tag at 4.8. With Bogdan back, it does eat into the usage and minutes of a guy like Ivy, a little bit of Hayes as well. So Stewart will look decent. It just, it really comes down to who's in or out. Another one of those games that starts early, so we'll have to wait for that news. Because there's just a lot to go over. 3 main big pieces for this team. Livers is questionable. He could get run if he's back. He was seeing like mid-20s minutes when he was back as well. So there's just a lot of news there. We'll have to wait for that. Check out my free Patreon. I'll go more in depth with that there. For the Pelicans Boston, a little bit of blowout risk here because, the Pelicans are playing on the road at Boston. But CJ looks solid here as the spend up 8,700. Don't mind him as like more of a contrarian spend up. He does have a pretty low floor, especially if he's not hitting the shots. But, he's been good recently with those guys being out of Zion and Ingram. J Val, just more of a secondary contrarian option here for me. Should see around 30 minutes, close to it, maybe a little bit more if you're lucky. But right now, the minutes are just a huge question mark for him. Not a great matchup here versus Boston. Very solid defensive team. I can see it being one of those games where J Val gets in foul trouble. But yeah, it really just makes him more of a secondary option for me, contrarian play. Najee's been solid. He's been bailing out the fish the past few games. Like, he was good the first game versus Brooklyn. He was decent chalk. Dallas, okay. And then he was just terrible chalk versus Washington. Of course, he shoots 20 times in the game. Not really sure why they're relying on Naji Marshall. I mean, he's a solid player. Don't get me wrong, but he was like 45% owned. And then Murphy and Jones were like 10. So, I mean, with that ownership, we'd rather get to a guy like Trey Murphy, even though he's been playing terrible. You just want to play the ownership percentages. But yeah, I mean, Marshall's there, decent. We'd rather prefer Trey Murphy just because of lower ownership. I mean, we know he's a solid player. If you check out the beginning of the season, that's with guys like Zion, BI back. And he was, putting up solid numbers. There's games where one of those guys would miss. He put up solid numbers. It's just a bad stretch for Trey Murphy, so that's why I like him. Herb Jones is doubtful with that back injury, so they'll probably slide Dyson Daniels into the starting lineup. You could definitely take a shot on him. Shooting guard, small forward eligible. Should see around 20-ish minutes, maybe a little more. Larry Nance, I don't mind him. They could close small. Boston is a little bit of a smaller team. So you could definitely look to him. He saw 26 minutes in that last game. J Val is very foul prone. They could definitely close with Larry Nance like they did at the beginning of the season. Boston, Tatum, Brown, both priced about right. They look pretty solid here. Let me get off the Pelicans real fast. Marcus Smart is questionable. He missed that first game. If he plays today, really no interest in this team besides maybe taking like a tournament throw on a Smart or a Brogdon. But if he's out, once again, Brogdon, White look very solid. Robert Williams, if he's questionable, if he's going to miss, just solidifies more minutes for a guy like Horford. A few more minutes for a guy like Williams, who was very good last game. If Williams is back, it'll be interesting to see if they start him. If they do, I think he's very, very solid there at 4-7. A little bit disappointing in that game where he started against Chicago, only played 23 minutes, 21 fantasy points. But yeah, it really just comes down to if these guys are in or out. If they're both in, not a lot of interest besides kind of the cheaper guys for Boston. If they're both out, obviously we can look to one of the pay-up options, and then we can look to these cheaper guys like a Brogdon, White, Williams, even a Horford here. Solid point per minute guy, Grant Williams. So there's a lot of interest there for me in Boston right now. Indiana, Halliburton at 9.2. I love the price tag. I mean, he just keeps floating around this 9K price tag. Obviously, there's a little bit of a floor there, 37 fantasy points, but we can know he can easily go for 50 plus if he's hitting the shot. So do like Halliburton a good amount tonight at 9.2. Miles Turner looks solid. He's been doing better recently, as you can see, 35 plus in pretty much the past 4 or 5 games. It's just sometimes the minutes are question mark. He's foul prone at times, but looks like he's slowly starting to pick it up. But there's always those games where he just goes out there and does nothing. Buddy Hield looks solid. I mean, he's going to shoot the ball a ton. He's going to play a good amount of minutes. It just comes down to if he can hit a shot. The rest of the team, just more secondary options. No real need to really get to any of these guys. Moving on to the Knicks. Randall, Brunson, they're both very, very valuable if RJ Barrett's out. If RJ Barrett's back, not a lot of interest for me in this team besides maybe a Mitchell Robinson there at 5.4. But yeah, I mean, with RJ Barrett back, it just eats into all the usage for a guy like Brunson and Randall. As we saw, they're both way overpriced if Barrett's back and he'll be playing normal minutes. But if Barrett's out, I mean, we saw Randall go 9 of like 6,000 in that last game versus Milwaukee. Still played 40 minutes, still was able to get you there. So 10.5, he looks like an okay spend up. Brunson 8.2, once again, okay play that their price tag. He shot 15 to 30, had one of his best games of his career there, 44 fantasy points, or real life points. So once again, the big news, if Barrett's back, no interest. If he's out, you could definitely go to Arundel and Brunson. Both become very viable. Same thing with Quickly and Grimes and Robinson. If Barrett's out, you could definitely look to one of those three as well. Moving on to Milwaukee. We have Giannis looks fantastic there, 11-8 versus Atlanta. They've been a little disappointing the past 2 games. Obviously that huge blowout, 12 fantasy points, only 46 against the Knicks. So like a nice bounce back spot here for Giannis. Same thing for Drew Holiday. I mean, really, 3 fouls in the first 4 minutes of the game. 3 in the first 4 minutes for one of the best defenders in the league. I mean, that makes no sense. He lost out. I think he only played like 12 first half minutes, and then pretty much had to play the rest of the second half. So he looks great there at that price tag. I do like him a good amount here in this matchup. A little bit too cheap there once again he was on pace to play his normal amount of minutes of like 36 to 38. So I think Drew Holiday is way too cheap there. Bobby Portis off the bench, sure, you could go to him. I'd prefer getting to Brook Lopez at the starting lineup. We know he has solid upside there. So yeah, I have a good amount of interest in the main 3. Rest of the team, sure, you can get to these salary relief guys like a Grayson, Pat, Joe Ingles, but I don't think there's really a need to. Moving on to Atlanta. Trae Young at the top. He's actually had some solid games against Milwaukee this season. I think he went for let's see here. He went for 40 in the second game, but at the beginning of the season, he went for 58.5 with 42 real life points. So he does have some upside there. I prefer getting to DeJounte just because he kind of offers similar upside at times. Obviously, he has a pretty low floor, but we know he can get 40, 50 plus if he's having a solid game. So he's there. John Collins, a little bit too expensive for me in this matchup, even with Clint Capella still out. I don't mind Bogdan here coming off the bench. He's been disappointing the past 2 games. We know he has solid upside. He will be aggressive when he's out there. So I think he's looking like to be my favorite one. Okongwu starting. Sure, you can go to him. Just don't love the matchup. Hunter, he looks solid. So my interest right now lies in Hunter. And Bogdan. Moving on to the Spurs and Memphis game. We got Keldon Johnson questionable. If he's in, I think he looks solid there at that price tag. Not a priority for me, but more just like a very solid secondary option. If he's out, we can look to Trey Jones, 6'5". Don't love the price tag. He kind of has like a limited ceiling, but he looks decent. Vassal's out still. So Podol, 6'3". It all just comes down to minutes for Podol. If he's going to play 30 plus, we know he has massive upside, as you can see, 51. If he's going to play like mid-20s, he's just very, very risky at that price tag. Jeremy, 5,000. he has some upside. Josh Richardson would probably look the best player, best price point, even though his minutes he's not getting like into the 30s. He's just seen mid 20s as well. So just not a lot to like here on the Spurs side, even with like the potential of Keldon Johnson being ruled out. It's like, sure, you can get to Zach Collins. He's very very good point per minute guy when he plays. I mean, maybe Romeo is the best play there at 4,000. Bassey sees some minutes. McDermott. It's just a gross team. They just play so many guys. It just eats up so much usage, so much. I just Spurs suck. Moving on to Memphis. John Morant looks fantastic here, 10-3. I mean, he's been a little bit disappointing in terms of just like fantasy output. Really hasn't flashed like a huge game since I think the beginning of December here. Yeah, 66, a triple-double. But besides that, he's kind of just floating between like 43 to 52-ish, depending on if it's close, if it's a blowout. So I think he looks great. It's just we really haven't seen like that 6x, 7x ceiling from Ja yet. With him back, these guys are just more secondary plays. Like, sure, you can get to Bane. I still think he's pretty solid. Playing along Ja, he does still have a pretty solid ceiling. But right now, it's really just Ja for me, and that's it. Brandon Clark is still out, so you could definitely take a shot on Tillman. He'll see around 12 to 18 minutes as like a backup big. But yeah, I mean, they're there. Steven Adams, sure, you can take a shot on him. He has upside. But yeah, it's really just Ja for me on the Memphis side. Moving on to the last two games. Phoenix and Denver, once again, going to be riding the Dwayne Washington train only if Chris Paul's out. If Chris Paul's in, you can definitely go to him at 7-6. Not the best matchup here. Definitely blowout risk. But, I mean, we know he's upside, as we saw in that last game versus Cleveland, 47 fantasy points. So I don't mind him. It just depends if he's in or out. So let's say, if Aiden's back 7-7, I don't mind him in that matchup versus Jokic. Obviously will be just more of a contrarian spend up play there. Once again, if Chris Paul's in, no interest in Dwayne for me. If he's out, obviously love Dwayne there at 4,600. I don't mind running back Bridges. Played him last night. He was great, 41 minutes, 52 fantasy points. So we know he has that upside, but there's always that risk where he can go out there and shoot 3 of 15 like he did versus Cleveland. Still was able to get you there a decent amount. But yeah, I do have a good amount of interest in these Suns guys. Hopefully we get the news that Chris Paul is out before the first game start. If not, I don't mind kind of building your lineup around the fact that Chris Paul could be out. Because if he is, I don't think a lot of people are going to get risky. Like, most of the public are not going to get risky. Like, the smarter, sharper players, sure, they're going to build some of their lineups around the fact that Chris Paul could potentially be out and Dwayne Washington become a great play. But I think a lot of people, just more of the casuals, won't. So you could definitely go that route. I think I like getting risky like that. So we'll have to wait for that news there. Denver side, Jokic looks great, 11-6. I don't mind going to Jamal Murray or Aaron Gordon. Jamal was great for us, or great for me the other day. They were 53 against the Lakers. Aaron Gordon looks like one of those matchups where he could definitely go for a double-double game, have that 40-plus upside on the solid matchup here. The rest of the team just kind of there. Obviously, the big news is Bruce and Highland. If they're both out, we could definitely look to like KCP to pick up some more minutes. We could look to Braun to get back into the lineup. We can look for Ish Smith to kind of fill in that backup point guard role. So definitely keep an eye on some of those news there. You could definitely build your lineup around this Phoenix Sun and Denver possibility of those guys being out. And then moving on to the last game, Houston and Sacramento. These guys look, pretty solid, pretty cheap here against a Sacramento team we always like to target. So I do like Jalen Green a good amount here. He has not been shooting the ball well recently. We know he has massive upside if he can hit his shots. Sengun's been decent. Don't mind him. I like, the price tag on Jabari Smith Jr. here. We know he has some solid upside, double-double upside. So it just comes down if he can play the minutes. If he can play around 30, he looks good. The rest of the team just kind of there. No real interest for me in those value pieces. And then moving on to Sacramento. Great spot here going against Houston. This is a fantastic game environment. So if you want to stack this game, don't mind it. Just really hope it stays close. Sabonis, Fox look priced about right. Herter, always worth the tournament option. Same thing with Keegan Murray. He looks pretty solid there at 4,400. Don't mind Monk, as he's always a good tournament play. He has pretty big upside. Just comes down if you can get the minutes, and that's really it for me. So right now, I'm just going to be kind of waiting for the core plays, just because we have a lot of news in this first game with Chicago, Washington. Same thing with Minnesota and Detroit, and then for Phoenix and Denver. Kind of hope we get that news right away. If we don't, I do think I'm going to build my lineup kind of around the fact that those guys might be out, and we can get some good value pieces from Phoenix and Denver. So make sure to check out my Twitter. Make sure to check out my free Patreon link down below, where I'll go more in depth later today on hopefully we get more news, and I'll talk about, kind of the route I'm going to go in terms of building my lineup. So make sure to hit that like button. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.